The DC Council has approved a bill that will allow minors, I believe as young as 11, to get vaccinated without parental consent. And I'm shocked by this, but as COVID hysteria sweeps across the nation, we are going to see more and more measures that undermine parental authority, and we're going to see more and more authoritarian restrictions. We also have now Qantas, however you pronounce it, the airline. They said in an interview recently that if you would like to board their flights internationally, you have to have proof that you've been vaccinated. We've heard from Ticketmaster. Now, they received a ton of backlash from this, that if you want to go to their events, if you want to get a ticket, they'll put your vaccination status on it. They've backtracked saying, no, that's up to the organizers. But yes, there will be for many events vaccination status. The most shocking thing out of all of these bills is allowing kids to get vaccinated without their parental consent. But we've seen this building up for quite some time. For a long time, they've been talking about anti-vaxxers, saying that, parents who oppose vaccination, you're an anti-vaxxer, you're crazy and all this stuff. And I got to say, I think for the most part, vaccines are great. They're wonderful. We've done away with so many diseases and illnesses thanks to vaccination. So I'm all for it. I went to Egypt. I went to Venezuela. No, not when I went to Egypt. They made fun of me for this. When I was working for Vice, I went to Venezuela. I got a ton of vaccinations. They make you take like hepatitis A. You get, I think I got typhus or whatever. I don't know. I can't remember. Tuberculosis, yellow fever, some other things. It was crazy. I got like 3 or 4 shots in a single day. I'm fine. I seem to be doing all right. And it prevented me from getting sick. But there's a bigger concern with rushing through vaccinations, doing, look, I'm not in favor of the government saying that without informed consent, without the parental approval, some kid can take a private pharmaceutical drug, okay? The parents are the ones who are supposed to be raising these kids, but I'll tell you, this is all coming from the left. For the longest time, for quite some time, however long it's been, I don't know. Maybe I wasn't active in politics enough, but it seems the left's goal is to do away with parental consent, perhaps replacing the parents or family with government or something. Black Lives Matter said that one of their stated goals is to disrupt the nuclear family. And now we're seeing across this country COVID lockdowns that are destroying the economy and destroying people's jobs. And I got to tell you, it doesn't have to be a conspiracy. It doesn't. It's just dominoes falling over. And we have to wake up to what our society is doing. You got these governors destroying the economy. You've got schools being shut down against the guidance of the CDC because people like Cuomo are spineless and terrified to take any responsibility. Dude, you can pass the buck on the CDC. Doesn't care. Nope, we're going to shut the schools down for seemingly no reason. And when the kids can't go to school, many parents can't go to work. Then you'll end up with parents who are destitute, begging the government for help. But you know what? Maybe that's what they really want. But it won't matter because they're going to tell parents, we don't care what you think. We are going to talk to the kids about what the kids want. Why would a kid know what is best for them? Our parents are supposed to be the ones helping develop children, but here we go. Now, this story is from November 12th. It's old, but I have the latest update. This was approved. WUSA 9 says the DC Council is inching closer to approving a bill that would allow children as young as 11 years old to get recommended vaccines without their parents' approval. There would be some requirements, but direction overall would come from a doctor. A final vote from the council is expected Tuesday. They voted. They passed it. I'll show you that in a second. They say when Ward 3 council member Mary Che introduced the Minor Consent for Vaccinations Amendment Act of 2019, it was a response to a measles outbreak that spread from coast to coast. At the time, many wondered if the district would become the next hotspot as vaccination rates trended downward in the city. I think it should be worrisome to people when children are not vaccinated for these diseases. It is. I'm worried 100%. But what are we going to do? Force people to get vaccinated? Force people to take private drugs? These vaccines aren't made by the government. And you know what really happens? You know what I think this is? I hear, you know what, man, conspiracies usually about money and power. You want to know why someone in government's going to be like, we should allow children to get vaccinated? 2 big reasons. The first, obviously, these people really believe these kids need to be vaccinated. The measles outbreak was terrifying. Okay. Getting kids with measles, kids get sick, permanent, disability of some sort. You can be permanently affected or sometimes you die. So we want kids to be safe and we want herd immunity. We want that to work. So we need people to get these vaccines. That's the obvious one. The next less obvious, but still kind of obvious, is when you mandate vaccines or you make it so a doctor can tell a kid they have to get a vaccine or they should, and the kid goes, I don't know, I guess, they can sell more. And then the stock of the pharmaceutical company starts going up. It's that simple. And a lot of people got these crazy conspiracies about the COVID vaccine. I'm like, dude, it's really simple. First of all, people want a vaccine. That's the obvious one. People legit don't want to get sick. But the next one is, there's going to be some dude being like, no bid contract. What did Operation Warp Speed do? Got like billions of dollars in guaranteed contracts to big pharmaceutical companies. They were jumping up around and dancing all excited, like guaranteed money from the government. You got to love it. Then people who know this is coming, they buy stock in these companies and skyrockets. You could have bought stock a long time ago. That's the name of the game. People getting rich off this stuff. And what are they doing? Sacrificing kids to do it. Because if you bring a parent in, the parent might say, no, I don't think my kid needs this. You bring the kid in, the kid's going to be like, I don't know. And they're going to be like, well, you got to get it. How many stories have we heard where a kid was told, you have to do this? You have to have it. You have to have it. And the kid says, I guess, just bows down to the authority figure. Well, there it is. They say the bill would give kids as young as 11 years old the green light to get a vaccination without parental consent if a doctor recommends it. The doctor would also determine if the child meets a certain standard of informed consent before administering the vaccine. To prevent the parents from knowing, health providers would be required to bill insurers directly and send vaccination records to the school. The gateway, again, is the physician who has to make this judgment. That is that person 11, 12, 15, 18 capable of giving informed consent? And is it consistent with the physician's medical judgment? Asha Pinky Gillis has a 5-year-old daughter and a 14-year-old son. She tells WUSA 9 the measure is concerning to her household. She does not believe her teenager is old enough or emotionally ready to make decisions without her help. I am 100% against the bill. I think it violates my fundamental right as a parent to manage the upbringing and the health and welfare of my child. If my child goes and gets a vaccination and has an adverse reaction to the vaccination, I won't know what's going on because I've never been told my child has been inoculated. And if the kid has an adverse reaction, which can happen, then what? These kids are going to be at home freaking out, maybe pass out. And the mom's like, I have no idea. Then she's going to call a 911 and say, what's wrong with your kid? I have no idea. Complication rates for vaccines, they're low, man. They are. For the most part, I got no issue. None. But I'll tell you this. It went from these conspiracy theorists believing that, vaccines were crazy and would paralyze you and do all this crazy stuff. And then it turned into, if you were concerned about a big pharmaceutical company's private product being mandated upon you, you were an anti-vaxxer. Well, I think vaccines are one of the greatest developments in human history because we've wiped out diseases. And y'all, take a look at some of these photos of, polio, smallpox, these things. Yeah, I'm glad we've done away with a lot of these viruses. At the same time, aren't we trying to maintain individual liberty? They aren't. And so that's why they're doing this. Young kids, what do they want to do? They want young kids to vote before they're emotionally prepared or ready to know what they're voting for. They want young kids to be able to get life-altering surgeries and life-altering treatments and vaccinations without being told by someone they love and trust and someone who is there to look out for them. I tell you, man, look, there are a lot of dumb parents out there. There's a lot of dumb people out there. And I think if the parent ultimately decides, they don't want their kid to get this, well, that's on their parent. Here's what I think. We have a fundamental problem in terms of how this is going to be implemented moving forward because private companies are going to mandate it. And so you want to go to Walmart or whatever, they're going to be like, we only allow people who are negative or vaccinated, which means you got to get a test and you got to get the vaccine. And then you're going to walk up to these big box stores and they're going to have a thing you can scan with your QR code and then they'll let you in. I really do believe we will see that because China's been calling for it. We're already seeing this implemented in other countries and the left is cheering for it. Bow down to the big overlords. Give up. Just let the government dictate what's good for you. That's always worked out well, right? But I think it's going to happen. I do not believe in the United States the government will issue some declaration mandating vaccines outright. However, they will pass a law saying schools, if you want your kid to go to school, kids got to get a vaccine. This is where it gets freaky, As much as I like the idea of doing away with these illnesses, we go through a long process. And now my concern with the COVID vaccine is it was rushed through. I know Trump is all saying I did this and I'm like, that's great. I've said what Cuomo has said, what Biden and many others have said. I'm going to wait a little bit. Most Americans have said they're not going to get the vaccines right away. And to be honest, I don't know if I would either. because I don't know if I need to. I mean, I don't get flu vaccines either. And the survival rate is like 99.98%. So here it is right here. They say it was up to be passed. Here it is. It's passed. District of Columbia. They straight up say it. I think I can play the audio for you.
Councilmember Che votes yes. Mr. Chairman, there are 10 yeses and 3 noes.
The bill is approved.
Bill is approved. 10 yeses, 3 noes. And you can see right here, Minor Consent for Vaccinations Amendment Act of 2020. Committee on Health Chairperson Gray. There was a brief amendment early on, but ultimately it did end up passing. And this was this was revised 11/16/2020. And then we get this from the Los Angeles Times, November 16, 2020. Why all 50 states need to allow teens to get vaccinated without parental consent. Why y'all want to get my kids on inoculation without me knowing? What's the point of that? Seriously. I know the simple answer is I don't want to get sick, so that's on you. You better get vaccinated. But seriously? This is where things start getting freaky. Ticketmaster recently faced a massive backlash because they were saying you would need to have your vaccine status. Well, they've walked back, but it's still true. They said Ticketmaster said it's exploring a number of safety features that events organizers may want to use, including checks on test and vaccine status. But entry requirements will be up to organizers. Yeah, great. And then organizers are going to say, you vaccinated? So, look, we can see when this tweet from Current Affair, Qantas CEO confirms that proof of you've been vaccinated for COVID-19 will be compulsory for international air travel on board his aircraft. You're not going to hear from your, major, your president, your prime minister, your government that it must be administered. You're not going to line up outside of a camp where they're administering shots. You're just not going to be able to do anything. You're not going to be able to go to big box stores. You're not going to be able to travel. You're not going to be able to, they might even have checkpoints at certain states where they're like, look, no one's forcing you to get this, but we require all people because of the outbreak. And there you go. Now, of course, I think a lot of people would assume something much more nefarious. And I don't know if you guys have seen the show Utopia, but I just started watching Utopia. And I got to tell you, talk about this. What are you doing putting out this TV show? OK, I'm a spoiler alert. OK, just for those who haven't seen it. Utopia is a show from 2013 in the UK. It's been remade by Amazon, and it's about a social justice, wealthy tech mogul, pharmaceutical guy who wants to create a world with no racism and no sexism and no inequality. So he stages a fake pandemic to rush through approval of a vaccine that actually just sterilizes people. And that's on Amazon right now. And they have a big disclaimer. This is not about a real pandemic. And I'm like, come on, man. You already got people who are concerned about why they're being forced to take a vaccine or why these lockdowns are happening. And they're happening more and more. Now you're going to get this idea in their head that it's a secret government plot to sterilize them or something. It's a TV show, guys. It is. But I'll tell you this. Simple solution on the surface. I don't trust these people. I don't trust the government. And now, when you look at the lockdowns, it all starts to come into view. Check it out. Nevada Governor Sisolak issues 3-week statewide pause as COVID cases surge. Oregon, the governor tells residents to call cops on people violating COVID restrictions. Crazy, huh? Who would have thought that would actually happen here? Because here's what you get. They start locking everything down. Then all of that money from your small business, which is gone, now goes to Walmart, to Target, to these big box stores, and to Amazon. And then once all that's left is Walmart puts on their door, scan your QR code or you can't come in. This is not a conspiracy theory. I'm literally saying that Walmart is going to be like, we don't want to.
Yeah, that's right. I caught up with Asha Pinckney Gillis.
They're going to say that they don't want to be responsible for these outbreaks. Walmart's going to say, look, we have way too many people coming to our store. We don't want to be responsible for someone coming in with COVID. So we want to know that you're vaccinated. It's not a conspiracy. It's just a product of the dominoes falling over. Okay, maybe it's a conspiracy. Maybe it's a standalone complex, or maybe it's just that humans are tending toward this for a variety of reasons. It doesn't have to be a plot. It just has to be stupid, scared, panicky humans. Some government official says, people are complaining. I'm hearing in the media, we got to get kids vaccinated. Let's pass a bill that allows the kids just to do it. Then they do. Then you get some guy who's like, I don't care about what the CDC says or the WHO. Just lock it down because I don't want to be responsible. So they lock it down. Then you see a collapse of all these small businesses. Then Walmart gets boosted up. And Walmart says, look, We're one of the only stores still open, and I'll be damned if I'm responsible for a super spreader event. And so then they say, we want people to wear masks and be vaccinated. It started with anti-vaxxer. Then they started this thing called anti-masker. And it's really funny. You see how they play, how these people are playing this game. Anti-masker, they say. Listen, I wear a mask. I got no problem. I think, look, there are people I know and trust who've gone through COVID experiences, and it is scary. It's just not airborne Ebola, okay? I have a friend whose grandmother got sick. She's fine now. And it's scary, though. It is. So that's why I'm like, I wear a mask. I don't care. Even though I'm not sick, I'm not around anybody. Sure, fine, whatever. Masks just stop you from spitting. So hopefully it helps slow down the spread of other diseases as well. In the end, this might actually, this is what's funny about the show Utopia. Their plot, I guess, is to like get this vaccine out and sterilize everybody. But I'm like, actually, wearing a mask could actually do away with a bunch of more common illnesses. And you can end up seeing much less of the common cold, and we've seen less of the flu. I will say it's really funny that they're like, wear a mask to slow the spread. And then the flu goes away, but then COVID doesn't. So I don't know. You figure out what that one means. But look, these lockdowns are getting crazy. And I tell you, I wonder, can the American people be conquered? I don't know. I don't know exactly how this all will play out. I know that Americans have an independent spirit, as Dr. Fauci noted. And he said it's time to do what you're told. I don't think that's going to fly because we got this one. Protesters in Huntington Beach speak out in defiance of state's coronavirus curfew. You know what's funny? I love this meme. They're like, as long as you get inside and shut your door by 9:59, you won't get COVID. That's the meme. Okay. What they're trying to say is they have the curfew because they don't want people going to bars, because people go to bars and they spread COVID. But that's what's crazy about it. If you know that's where the spreader event is, then you're choosing to go there. What constitutional authority do these states have to issue this kind of stuff? I don't know, man, but I tell you, it all feels like there's this plan for the Great Reset that is taking advantage of COVID to try and force these things, because ultimately it results in a destroyed economy. That's what it's about. I think the vaccine thing is just for money for the most part. I think COVID is scary. It is scary, but you can't live your life in fear. I know people who have like people like I grew up with who've gotten it, and it's a real and it's a scary thing. So people naturally want the vaccine. But because of this panic, because of the media, it's going to make a ton of money for these big pharmaceuticals. So I guess buy stock or whatever would be the advice from the financial advisors, assuming they were giving advice. I am not. And people are going to get rich off this. They're going to get rich. But in the end, what I think we're actually seeing is, again, it's always the simple solution is that people are scared of the virus. And there's probably a lot of feckless politicians. But when you see them say outright they want a great reset, then you have to ask yourself why it is that Cuomo in New York is shutting down schools in defiance of CDC guidelines. Because when kids aren't at school, parents aren't at work. They got to find someone to watch the kid, or got to stay home, take time off. And then you see these big cities get their economies destroyed completely. Then they talk about a great reset, and you're like, I wonder why they're doing it when the CDC said not to. When the World Health Organization said lockdowns are a last resort. And although hospitalizations and deaths are going up, they're not tracking the same with cases. Lockdowns didn't work the first time. Why are they doing it? They want to destroy the economy, in my opinion. Now, as for the kids stuff, this is where I think, the question of can America be conquered comes into play. What I mean by that is not some grand conspiracy. I mean the American spirit. Will Americans just say, leave me alone and say, fine, give my kid vaccines. I won't resist. I don't care. I'm not responsible for this. Or will they start partying in the streets and waving flags and saying no? In Huntington Beach, they did. And I wonder if they can do anything about it. I'm honestly not entirely convinced they can. If people just decide not to do it, then there it is. You just don't do it. Now, it certainly seems like they've banned a lot of conservatives on certain social media platforms because the propaganda is thick. And boy, do they really want this lockdown, which makes that show Utopia all that much more crazy. Not that I think it's real, of course not. But it is funny when there are similarities. When you have the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, saying we need a great reset of global capitalism. They're outright just saying it. And then here we go. Build back better, plastered on the walls of all these different world leaders, campaigns. It's funny because A lot of this stuff was supposedly in the realm of conspiracy theory 10, 20 years ago. Everybody said Alex Jones was crazy for bringing it up. And while Alex Jones has said many a crazy thing, in my opinion, this one seems to be happening. Call it a conspiracy, call it whatever you want. I'm not going to imply there's a criminal conspiracy, but I can tell you the World Economic Forum is a real organization. Its founder and its members have absolutely stated their support for a great reset of global capitalism and called for intersectionality and leftist, identitarianism. They're pursuing it. They're pushing it. And then we're seeing these politicians, mostly Democrats, enact policies that work towards the Great Reset. I'm not saying it's a conspiracy. For the most part, the dominoes are falling over. That's it. But these people are certainly taking advantage of it because now's their opportunity. So I ask, will Americans say F no, or are they going to roll over and say, please just leave me alone? I'm sorry. I got to say, I think the majority are going to roll over and say, please just leave me alone. There are a lot of independent spirits in this country. Many people believe in freedom and liberty, and they'll probably stand up and we can see them in the streets. But I'm not sure it'll be enough. I'm not trying to be a pessimist, but I mean, look at how many people were too scared to say they would support Donald Trump. Probably the last person standing in the way of whatever all this is. People were too scared to say they supported him, so they would rather see their own country burn than just say they supported Donald Trump. I do think it's funny how the Trump supporters were mad at me because I'm not blindly marching behind all the fraud stuff. But I do think there was fraud. We will see how it plays out. But I voted for the guy. And I'm speaking up every day about how we need to defend our freedom and our rights. We'll see how long I last on this YouTube platform saying things like this. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It's a different channel from this one, okay? I know a lot of people are like, but it says Timcast here on YouTube. No, that's just the channel name that YouTube put there. For some reason, I didn't put it there. This channel is youtube.com/Timcast News. If you type in youtube.com/Timcast, it'll actually bring you to a different channel from this one where I put up content every day at 4 p.m. and that'll be live. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.